Oh, that was fun.
Yay,
awesome.
good job, you guys.
Thanks.
I know that was hard.
You did great.
Yeah, you did
Thanks.
great.
Way better than
I'm like,
I thought.
no crying.
I was going to do. Yeah, I was expecting to need a mom.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
Past the fire, past the sounds. Moonshine through the clouds, saddle up, 'cause there's no stopping me now.
Good day, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
And welcome,
Welcome.
to another episode, Living Well Together, Big Life in a Small Town.
Yeah.
We are fortunate again yet today
Mm-hmm.
to have some fabulous people with us. Locals living their big life in our small town.
Yeah. This is Lorne and Nikki Larson.
Ta-da.
Hello.
They're going to share some stuff with us today. They've got a foundation that they're going to share. But I want to kind of start with how you got here.
Yeah.
You're not local Fairborn people by birth and right and so forth. How'd you get here?
Well, first, thank you for having us. It means a lot, and this is our first time doing a podcast.
Fun.
Ours too.
Right.
I could tell. I'm just kidding.
But we moved to Fairborn in 2009. We were living in Germany. I was in the Air Force, retired, and that's a little bit of a story in and of itself. You know, people like, hey, how come you moved to Ohio? And to make a long story short, it was a process of elimination. Well, we don't want to go to the West Coast. We don't want to go to the South. And Nicole has some roots in Ohio, so we picked here. And knowing that the job market at that time, so I worked at Wright-Pat for a little while a long while
Yeah.
after I retired. But I'm originally. I grew up outside of Boston in Worcester, Mass. And,
Worcester.
We know
Worcester.
Which is actually
Worcester.
Worcester,
yeah,
but we pronounce it Worcester.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was born in Boston. I lived in Canton.
okay.
Grew up there.
And so you'd probably heard it like I have in terms of, hey, where's your accent? You know,
Yeah.
get excited and it will come out.
It does come out still. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And Nicole and myself, we met when I was stationed in Albuquerque at Kirtland Air Force Base back in the day. And she has a much different view on how we met.
Let's hear
much different
both.
story.
I'm okay with hearing both sides of that.
But yeah, I'll let her tell that story.
Lauren would say we met the old-fashioned way in a bar.
Yeah.
So shout out to Billy's Long Bar in Albuquerque.
Love it.
What were you doing in
Matchmakers.
Albuquerque?
That's where I was college.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm a Lobo. How like a Lobo. You can edit that one out, Graham. So no, I was working in an Italian trattoria, and some friends of mine there were trying to hook me up with a different guy in Lauren's little boy group, I guess. And we'll just say he wasn't my type, and that's when I met Lauren.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! The rest is history.
Now, Lauren, do you have a view that's different than what Nikki's is?
Well, it's mostly in terms of time frame. For me, it seems like it's a much less condensed period of time.
Okay.
You know, we dated for a day or two, but she makes it seem like it was an eon or a millennium.
Before you guys
It
got
was
married?
5 years.
But when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said it's 5 years.
But, well, when you're
you know,
not
you-
sure, you're not sure.
And kind of how that went down with the whole proposal, super romantic. You may have a different version of this, but we were living still in Albuquerque, and he calls me one day. He's like, honey, I have an assignment to Omaha off at Air Force Base. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know the Air Force moved girlfriends to Omaha. And so, bam, now we're married.
Oh, wow.
Almost 25 years later.
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And cut.
Oh, boy, yeah. So, yep.
But you picked Dayton because of Wright-Pat?
Yeah, the job market and just being in the Midwest and being centrally located. So at heart, I'm more of have an urban mentality, and Nicole's a little bit more of a suburban mentality, and so we thought it was the best of both worlds.
Yes.
And and people ask me all the time, it's like, so Lauren, what do you like about where you live? And I love my neighborhood. I love the ability, in 5 minutes I'm out in the country per se, and then 5 minutes I'm on 675 and I can quickly be in Columbus or or Cincinnati, or never mind Chicago or Detroit, and the
Yes.
and the beat goes on.
Yeah.
It is a wonderful place to live. We've been here there a long time as well, and it's like, how do you complain about this?
Right.
I
It's
don't.
really kind of nice.
Yeah, and that was the thing too. When we were in Germany, our kids were small. They were 4 and 2, no, 5 and 3. Anyway, they were little, and that was the whole thing. I went to high school outside of Columbus to Worthington, and I'll date myself here. At that time, it was just one school.
Worthington High School?
Yeah,
Okay, so I went to Worthington High School.
you did.
I did.
Oh my God! So you know.
But I graduated in 82, so there was just the one high school then, Thomas
so
Worthington.
I was 90, and I think they split. The class of 91 is when it went to 2.
Okay.
So
they killed
do you
me.
remember how big your school was? I mean, our class was
We had a huge-
864. It's crazy train.
Yours was 160?
864.
Oh, yeah. Ours
Yeah.
was close to that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was huge. They needed
Yeah.
2 high schools.
So part of me, I was like, I don't want that for my kids. It's too big. But then they ended up going to Beaver Creek, which isn't a whole lot smaller.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, it's a little bit of a fail, but they enjoyed it. It's fine.
Well, but their graduating class was still smaller than 8.
Yeah, I want to say Jordan's was, I think both in the 650-ish for
Okay.
both Jay and Xavier. So, yeah. Yep. But much smaller than, I guess Worthington in its own right. I haven't really been back for a while, so I don't know what it looks like now, but
They're
Yeah.
redoing the Thomas Worthington building.
yeah, I did. I kept getting emails, come walk through your high school. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Grab
no,
a brick.
yeah, no thanks. Yeah. I'm good. So, yeah.
How long did you live there?
4 years. So my upbringing, Lauren grew up, like you said, outside of Boston and stayed there. I moved all over the place. My dad was an engineer with Allied, and I'm not really sure why they moved him so much. I think he worked for Preston Lake Battery Division. So I was born in Pennsylvania and York, and then stayed there for about 4 or 5 years. Went to New Jersey for a year, and then Port Huron, Michigan for 6.
Oh, wow.
And then to Perrysburg, and then to Worthington.
Okay.
So
Wow, that's a lot of money.
yeah, yep, a lot. And I think New Jersey, both my parents are gone now, but New Jersey was only a year because the rumor is my mom had literally just told my dad, if you don't get me out of here, we're divorcing type of thing.
Oh, wow.
So she wasn't a fan of New Jersey. Yes. Anyway.
Well, good that he made it happen.
Yeah, true story. But yeah, so yeah, Dayton for me, I didn't know a lot about Dayton. It was close enough to Columbus. My brother at the time was living there, and my nephew and my bestie.
Yeah.
She's still there. My brother's passed, but yeah. So yeah, that's why. Yeah,
Trotting the globe. You've been around.
that's
I
right.
know. I was going to say, have you guys added up how many places you've lived total together in your lifetimes?
my
I mean, it's a
goodness.
lot, isn't it?
So, what's funny? We have on our bar in our house, our formal dining room is a bar because now we use it
Yeah.
as a bar.
Okay.
So part of our wall art, we have license plates that depict everywhere we've lived. So Lauren has a line, I have a line, and then we have a middle one, and that starts with New Mexico. Then, so I think each one of them has 5. I want to say.
Thereabouts.
Because you traveled quite a bit before I met you too.
Yeah, so mine starts off with an actual license plate from 1963 in Massachusetts, the
Nice.
year I was born, and then it goes to it jumps over basic training in my tech school, but then I think the next place it goes to is Turkey and then Germany, and I can't remember all the different places that. Colorado is on there.
I think you have New York. Do we have New York on there?
Yeah, I think we have New York on there, and then where we met in New Mexico.
Yep.
And that starts the we line. You
The
got
we
your
line.
line, you got your line, and then we got the we line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Albuquerque,
awesome.
Nebraska, Nevada, Germany, and then Ohio. Yeah. So
Where'd you live the longest? Is this the longest so far, Ohio?
Yes.
Is it?
yeah,
Yep.
for me.
Prior to meeting Nicole, I was stationed in Denver at Lowry Air Force Base, and I'm going to date myself. Like most of the bases I were at are now closed.
Oh, wow.
But I was there for over 7.5 years.
Okay.
Yep. And then we've been here since 2009, and the blink of an eye. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and it's just amazing, as we get older, how fast time goes.
I used to hear old people say that.
I know. So we,
When you get older, time goes faster. And I remember thinking, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And now what I know is, they were right. They were 100%
Dang it.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't understand why. I mean, it doesn't make sense that it goes faster,
Right.
but it really does.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because your filing cabinet gets more full of stuff, and then your runway is getting shorter.
That's
And so you gotta you hit the thrusters and back it up a little. I don't know, but yeah, they were right. Those people that used to say that.
Yeah. So we try not to say it.
Yeah, we all have those days where it feels like it drags on forever. At the same time, even with those days, the weeks and months and years go by quick.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And that kind of leads us into some serious information that you guys want to share about your daughter, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Our daughter Jordan, she passed on in October of 2023, and we were on a cruise, and at that time, so Jordan was just had her 21st birthday, and she was a senior at the University of Cincinnati, and so she came home and was dog sitting and house watching for us, and she's done this in the past, and so on this cruise, it left out of New York and it stopped in Rhode Island and Newport, and had a few stops in Maine, then a few stops in Canada, and our last stop was in Nova Scotia, and I keep wanting to say Halifax because that's what it felt like, but Halifax, and we get off the ship and we walk the boardwalk, and we're at this, I think it was like a maritime museum, and our phones are off, and because and so we had Wi-Fi, and and we all hear about that moment of being in shock, and but I can vividly remember we're on the stairway going up to the second floor, and we both turn on our phones because we have Wi-Fi, and we have voicemails from the police department, and Mr. Larson, please call. There's been an emergency at your home, and as I've been writing about this, I wrote, when I heard emergency, I'm thinking there was a fire, or someone may have broken into the home. If someone would have given me a million guesses, never would have thought that they were informing us that our daughter has passed on.
Yeah. Wow.
And we couldn't get a hold of the police. We tried to call back, and we were confused. So there was some really, the whole Mr. Rogers things, like when crappy things happen, look for the helpers. And there was two wonderful women from Tennessee that were close, and they knew something was wrong. So they just helped us get in touch with who we needed to get in touch with, because the detective wouldn't pick up the phone. So I called a friend and a fellow Rotarian. I'm like, I don't know what's going on at my house, but I need you to get over there.
Yes.
And she did. And then I eventually FaceTimed my neighbor. And Matt, God love him, is the one that had to tell us that Jordan had passed. So
You didn't know at that point still, when you were trying to reach the detective,
correct.
what had happened until your neighbor, Matt, told you. Wow.
Yeah. So
Because I had the voicemail, and I think Nicole may have had a voicemail, and I'm like, well, this is weird, and
Yeah.
and like I said before, I could have had all the guesses in the world, what was going on, and then just at that moment, everything comes crumbling down, and I'm glad Nicole brought up that point, as I can't find the words to describe just how hard it was, but in terms of a positive theme, those two young women that were, I believe they're on the cruise ship with us. I mean, they were right there, and just so loving and caring and kind, and fast forward over these last 15, 16 months, without our friends and family, and in some cases strangers. I don't know. I mean, coping and getting by. It's hard, but I don't know. I won't speak for Nicole, but if I'd be sitting here right now having this conversation without the love and support, and and earlier today I used that may sound trite or that may sound plastic, but truly that's from the heart.
Right.
Yep. And I want to go back to, the voicemails that we had. We both had them from a detective, but I also had one from a dispatcher in Fairborn.
Okay.
Prior to everything. So in my gut, I knew something was wrong with Jay. I mean, especially looking back at it, but because it was a well check. She hadn't shown up for her shift down at her job in Cincinnati. So her roommate, who was a coworker, and God love her, she called the police and said, "Hey, this is not like her."
Mm-hmm.
And so they came in, and that's how she was found.
But she was up here. She was at your house?
Yeah, dog
Okay.
sitting.
Got it.
But she still would have shown up for her job.
Commuting
Yeah,
back and
'cause
forth for work.
she was watching the animals during the week, and then I had another young lady taking care of them on the weekend because I didn't want Jordan to miss, up-teen shifts. So she didn't really want to miss up-teen shifts.
Because that was her last day, that Friday. So I think she showed up on the Sunday or the Monday, and then leading up to this, she commented on how she wasn't feeling well, and then
She was saying that to you guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
and I to this day I all the shoulda couldas, the fighting with what's irrational as a parent, as a dad, it haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, but when she texted on the Wednesday we were still I think we were in Maine. The days are getting mixed up, but so we're have our phones, and that's whatever. But like anything, she's like, my stomach hurts. I just don't feel well. And as a parent, you're just like, well,
Get the flu. It's going
yeah,
around.
exactly.
Right?
So I try not to beat myself up too much about that. And there's a lot,
Yeah.
and again, you have to remember, we didn't know for 2 months what had happened.
Yeah.
She was found.
I was going to say, let's let people know, because we know,
Yeah.
but let's let everybody else know. There was no foul play. Your house had not been broken into. There was no, it was clearly a disease process, not.
Well, in the beginning, to be honest, the police, I want to be careful here. I think there were two things, right? They found some frothy fluid in her throat. Was that right?
They found what?
Frothy fluid.
Frothy
They
fluid,
were
okay.
leaning towards, honestly, an OD.
Okay.
Because that she also had Narcan in her purse, but she worked in Over the Rhine, which is not the safest place in Cincinnati. And also, she's a substance abuse counseling major.
Okay.
So, and she cared, and she saw a lot of really crazy
Yeah, I'm
things
sure.
on Over the Rhine. And again, for people who don't know the area, it can be a little hairy.
And that's down by Cincinnati.
Yeah, in Cincinnati. So, and Lorne can probably talk a little bit more to this because you had more interaction with the detectives.
Yeah, and I mean, it was, the information, here we are, and then we're back on the cruise ship, and that's a story in and of itself. We weren't basically, you move, you're in Canada off a cruise ship, and you're supposed to leave the country the same way that you entered it,
Right.
and now we want to get back to our home, and they say you have to have a flight, and we were unable to get a flight out of Canada so this is Friday afternoon until that Monday.
Whoa.
And so that talk about a long 2 days on that cruise ship, and I could go on for a long time about that. So we're having these conversations as best as we can with law enforcement, and trying to get a sense of what went on, and I'll give a shout out to the Fairborn Police Department throughout this, and their professionalism and sharing of information. I couldn't ask for anything more, and even though that planted in terms of a potential drug overdose. In our heart of hearts, we knew that wasn't the case until we get the autopsy report back for the diabetic ketoacidosis 2 months later. But to get back in town, and is that Chief Roman? Is that his name? he allowed me to go to the police department, and he shared some things with myself, and it was, you know, and a lot of law enforcement agencies today get a bad rap, but that they showed us nothing but love and kindness and support throughout this. You know, showing photos and Xavier is in the Air Force, and he was with me, and he was allowed to come in and enable.
son.
Yeah,
Okay.
and enable.
And
able,
so he had flown back in too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he actually beat us here before we did.
Yeah.
But you know, having that seed that, you know, yes, they found her at the side of her bed, laying on the floor, and then, you know, once we got in that Sunday talking to the funeral home director, kind of I don't want to say softened the blow a little bit for us, but he's like, Lorne and Nicole, I can tell you, I've done this for a long time, and I can tell you what it isn't. And it wasn't a drug overdose, and the things that the detectives and the police department saw were normal for what happened. But that was a long 2 months.
I can't even imagine.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, and a few things here. So Xavier, our son, who's 22 months younger than Jordan, was in Monterey, California. He is an airborne linguist. So at that time, he was out at language school, DLI. And I want to give the Air Force some props here because he was our second phone call after two, you know, to figure out what was going on. And so that was Friday, you know, I don't know, 3 o'clock, maybe California time. And he was home by 6:30 in the morning on Saturday. Wow. And again, if you know anything about language school, he was on a 48-week program to become basically fluent in Russian. It's not easy. So, and he managed to come back and deal with all of this and excel.
Yeah, and I commented briefly on the support that we had from our friends and family, and so here we are. We're on the cruise ship, and we have close friends of ours, CC and Q, and just instantly reached out to us. And what can we do? And it's funny. It's she gives me a hard time. It's like, Lorne, if you thanked us one more time.
Thank you, CC.
And so I found another more colorful way of thanking them, and it ends in you, but it doesn't begin with thanks. And just almost from the get-go, it's like, what can we do? And so it's like, can you please get to our house? And because Xavier's coming home, and you know, and the police department was there, and the paramedics, and can you just, like, you know, clean things up, and, you know, make sure that things were presentable, and that was, I mean, I can't say enough about them.
Yep.
And throughout this, they've been there for us. So thank you.
That's part of that small town, though.
Yeah.
Right down to Chief Roman, right down to the people that I mean, that's the blessing of.
And also, you know, Atkins Funeral Home. Sherry's a friend of mine, Sherry and Walter, and it was a true testament to a small town because, again, we're stuck on the ship coming home, and I'm like, crap, you know, because there had to be an autopsy. We knew that, but we didn't know when that autopsy was going to be complete. But then what? Like, I didn't want her sitting somewhere.
Right.
So I got a hold of Sherry, and they took care of her. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
As it should be. Yep.
Yeah, and then as soon as we, you know, landed in Dayton, and we instantly drove to the funeral home, and they opened up for us, and were able to see Jordan and talk to them, and as I alluded to before, just kind, loving, supportive people, and I just can't say enough about them.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah, because during such a difficult time, having those people that show true compassion at least can soothe a little bit.
Yep. I
They
think.
can't change it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were really, you know, sorry, I think I interrupted you.
Go ahead.
He's used to it, though. So, there's a lot of things there. Like you said, I know it's their profession and they deal with this all the time, but it's just nice to have someone who could just be personal with you. My choice would not have been to go back to see Jordan, but Sherry's like, you need to go see her. And I'm glad I did. Right. So thank you, Sherry.
Yeah. She knew that later on
Yeah.
you would be
Yeah.
glad. Yeah.
Yep.
And, and it's, there's a lot going on in the world nowadays, obviously, and it's easy to get caught up in all of these things that are going on. And, and I give Nicole a little bit of a hard time. She'll come home from work and I'll say, belly aching about something. And I'm like, hey, no, did you have anything good happen today?
Yeah.
And through this, we've learned that, there is a lot of kindness and a lot of empathy and a lot of love. And that does not go unnoticed. And more importantly, it does not go unappreciated.
Yeah. That's a great perspective.
Yeah.
And it's, and sometimes it's the simple things. It's the small things. You receive a text from a friend, just, hey, Lorne, thinking of you. And sometimes, I don't want to use the term triggers, but there are certain things that didn't sit well with us. She's in a better place, or, sometimes we hear, well, I can't imagine. And we say, we don't want you to imagine that. And sometimes the best things that people can say to someone who's grieving is they say nothing. I don't know what to say. And they just give you a hug.
We do understand, though, it all comes from kindness.
Yeah.
Right.
So we just have to keep that in the back of our mind and just be like, okay, I get it. So, yeah. Yep. Well said.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And so we did the questionnaire, and we were chatting a little bit earlier. I mean, if there was, one big takeaway from this is we really don't want anyone to go through the same experience for any reason.
Right.
And within our family, I don't think we have any, at least on my side or your side, any history of diabetes. But now our eyes are wide open, and specifically Jordan, when her autopsy came back was diabetic ketoacidosis, and I don't want to put a preface out there because I'm hesitant to say too much because I don't want to, I'm not a doctor and I don't want to misstate something when it comes to diabetes, and but there are symptoms, and just like in our case, whether you have a loved one or a friend that doesn't know they're diabetic, but we've read many instances where people know they are a type 1 diabetic, and they just seem to think, well, I have the flu or the cold or COVID, and they ignore the symptoms. And so end of the day, if this helps one person, this is time that is more than well spent. And thank you for allowing us to share that.
No, we appreciate you sharing something that's so difficult.
Yeah.
And to be able to talk about losing your daughter and then still having empathy for others that you don't want it to happen to them. What were some of the symptoms that she had? What are some of the symptoms that you feel like people should be looking for?
I can tell you just from the research we've done and the work that we've done with, it was formerly JDRF, but they changed their name to Breakthrough Type 1 Diabetes, I think.
Okay.
Here's the thing with Jordan. The one big thing she had was weight loss. And for me, that was the only thing, looking back, I would say was a symptom.
Okay. Was it fast weight loss?
Not really. I mean, not really. She wasn't living with us.
Yeah.
She was home.
Yeah.
Right. But
Back and forth a
she
little.
was also going to school full time and working full time. So as a mom, she was mostly, she had turned 21 in September. So I'm just going to say 20-year-old girl.
Yeah.
We're women. We know how this, and she always, at that age, it's hard at any age really, because you're so self-conscious. And for me, she was just either working out or again, just busy. And I don't know. I mean, looking back, yeah, it was definitely a symptom. But outside of that, for me, I don't know. I don't know that I saw any.
Yeah, yeah. Nicole's absolutely right. I mean, here's Jordan, a full-time college student. I mean, working a full-time job and doing all the other things that a young woman does.
Right.
Sure.
Yep.
And I remember she would, she had a gym membership, and she would send these pictures of her on the stair climber, showing that she burned 800 calories. And yeah. But outside of the weight loss, I was just thinking, just busy.
Yeah.
And and they, and there's other symptoms. They talk about extreme thirst, and now in hindsight, we look back. All right, she was. There was always a water cup in her room, or 5 water cups, and
Right.
and we just looked at that as that was just her age, and there's symptoms of extreme thirst, extreme hunger. They talk about itchy skin, and
Did she talk about that?
a little bit about her complexion, but at the same. And as a guy, I don't want to, or as a dad, I don't want to sound insensitive, but just because just kind of took that as a girl growing up, a teenage girl maturing into a young woman, and but if I had all the guesses in the world, I never would have connected those dots.
No.
Yeah.
In terms of, and then again in hindsight, one of the big things that, whether it's the American Diabetes Association or, and there's a slew of other nonprofits, or what they call 501(c)(3).
501(c)(3).
Yep.
Yeah.
They list these symptoms and things to look for, but one of the big things is the pre-screening, in terms of the various types of blood tests,
blood work.
and things like that. And that kind of starts getting into the, is it expensive? Does there need to be other symptoms? But that's what I think we really needed, was to have some type of pre-screening.
I do want to back up here. Jordan saw her endocrinologist in June. So
Why was she seeing an endocrinologist?
she had an underactive thyroid. Wasn't Hashimoto's, which is another type of autoimmune thing. And I had a really long conversation with her endocrinologist after Jordan died. And I just want to make it very clear, there's no ill will.
Yeah.
I don't hold any, I'm not angry. I just wanted to understand.
Right, for sure.
And so her doc, this is kind of in the back of my mind. Her doctor is a late onset type 1 diabetic herself. She was diagnosed, I think she said, at 27 or 28.
Interesting.
She was active duty in the Air Force at the time. And I'm thinking, if Jordan saw her in June and her doc saw her once a year, if she couldn't pick up on cues, how the hell are we supposed to pick up on cues?
Right.
And she told me, she's like, there was nothing with Jordan that said to me, take her blood work for that. I mean, obviously she did a panel for her thyroid, but nothing for her sugar.
Okay.
So,
Or even a regular CBC.
Yeah.
Because those aren't expensive.
correct. And so for me, I want to back up here too. We don't know how long she was really dealing with it, because we don't know what her A1C was. I don't know if they took that at her autopsy. It doesn't matter for me. The end result is still the same, but a lot of times it's just kind of hiding. And if she would have had a virus, this is what I believe happened. And there's no scientific evidence to this whatsoever.
Yeah.
I just think she had a virus and it triggered it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's pretty common.
I would say that's more common than most people think.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, let's say it wasn't. Back to the screening.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But in having a screening means you have a baseline, even if you don't have any issues.
Correct.
Blood work is like test, don't guess, right?
Yeah.
We shouldn't be guessing about our health.
Yeah.
And especially when something like this could have opened her eyes to what was going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and again, my knowledge on this is it's not much, and so I really don't want to misstate anything and hurt anyone's feelings. And that Lorne, he should have said this or should have said this. But yeah, I mean, if there's any doubt, well, my loved one, my friend, whether it's the extreme thirst or weight loss, and then with the diabetic ketoacidosis, your breath can have this fruity smell to it, and never mind extremely tired, and because at this time so during Jordan's the results from her autopsy, her blood sugar was close to 500.
It was over
Close to 600.
Yeah.
And again, just being so naive about that, like Nicole was saying, she could have had this and been dealing with this, for months, or there could have been something that triggered it. It could be, I remember Jordan saying, I work at this restaurant and there's a stomach bug going around.
Yeah.
Or the flu and just sets it off. But with the from what I've learned about the diabetic ketoacidosis, your body stops producing insulin, or at least the amount of insulin that you need, and you're unable to break down the glucose, your blood sugar, and then so your body starts producing ketones because it's breaking down, I believe, fat and maybe even eventually muscle, and that causes your blood to become acidic, and then organ failures and yes, and so it's hard. It's hard. It's just as we said, there's just so many other things that mimic that. And we say, if we were home, would we have done anything different?
Right.
And probably not. We would have said the same thing. Hey, get some rest and drink some fluids, and we learned that she had heating pads out, and there were water bottles and Gatorade bottles and ice packs, and she the bathtub was full of water, and so and we seen her text messages between her friends, and I want to share this about Jordan. Sometimes as parents, our kids were the greatest.
Yeah.
And Jordan, what can we say? It can be a handful at times.
Sure.
Yeah.
We were handful.
I was asking every kid's a handful at times.
More kids. Yeah.
A little nervous that they weren't.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say she walked on water or 6 inches above water.
Right.
But deep down inside, just a loving, caring, generous person, and we were able to get her text messages and get her cell phone back, and one of her last text messages was to her work group, and I was able to look at all those, and so where she worked in Cincinnati at a restaurant and over the Rhine called the Eagle, and they were chit-chatting back and forth. I'll just say about some personalities, and here's Jordan, into the early stages of the diabetic ketoacidosis, and she texted her roommate saying, I just couldn't comment on this. I didn't want to be insensitive or unkind, but here I am. I feel like expletive, and my head is banging, but I just, and that's how come I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And then she kind of gave a little smiley face at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So didn't want to be insensitive, but yeah.
Yeah.
She was also probably like, shut up. Yeah. Knowing her, like, stop.
Yeah. And also feeling pretty bad.
Yeah. Pretty cruddy.
Yeah, and then we also learned after the fact that when she was trying to whether it was a hot bath, or I'm going to say it was a hot bath, she texted one of her friends saying that she woke up basically swallowing water because she fell asleep in the bathtub.
Oh goodness, yeah.
And so the evidence at the home, just can't fathom everything that she was going through and trying to manage the symptoms, and we say that only if she would have called someone or reached out. But at the same time, I know when I had the flu or when I had COVID, the last thing I wanted to do, I just wanted to sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone and let's get through it.
Yep.
Yeah. And the bathtub incident is interesting because that's something I ended up emailing to the coroner because, you know, again, I'm a little bit hot at the fact that they're still leaning towards, or at least I felt they were leaning towards a drug OD. And I'm like, hey, just a heads up. We just found out she swallowed water in the bathtub. Could it be a dry drowning?
Yeah.
Because again, you don't know. And
Right.
he got back and he was like, all right, you know, I've received your information, and who knows what he was thinking, but because you're grasping at
Yeah.
Yep.
like what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
We want
So,
answers.
Yeah. Yep. And he was very kind and patient.
Yeah.
We'll just say. So
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys have set up a foundation,
Yes.
and
Yep.
tell us about that.
So I can talk about this one without crying, I think. So when we were on the boat going back to New York City, Lauren and I, again, you're just trying to grapple with what the heck just happened. And, you know, what do we do? You know, how do we honor her? So we first talked about, Lauren brought up a scholarship to UC.
Okay.
And I kind of said, well, you know what? She hated school. She was going to finish because she was so close. But I'm like, I don't know if that's the best way to honor her. So, you know, we just kind of let it sit for a minute. So a couple weeks after this all happened, a few of my lovely fellow Rotarians came up with an idea about starting a foundation for Rotary Youth Exchange students.
Wonderful.
Yep. Jordan was an outbound long-term exchange student.
Okay.
2018 to 19, her junior year of high school.
Where did she go?
She went to Austria.
Whoa.
I know, right?
How fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so she was in a little town outside of a bigger town called Klagenfurt. So she was in the southeast corner, kind of Austria.
Okay.
And the reason I'm a Rotarian is because of her youth exchange.
Really?
Yes. So there were a few hiccups with her exchange.
Oops.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things we like to promote within Rotary Youth Exchange, and you know, we're one of the few people that do this not for profit, and you know, there's a lot of companies out there that you can go and exchange with, but they're pricey, and the reason I love the way Rotary does it, yeah, it still costs money to get a kid overseas, but it's nothing near what you would pay if you went through different team of people. But Jordan, she was with one host family, which is something we don't like to see, because again, if you don't click, or if there's just something that isn't sitting right, either with the student or the family, or God forbid, both.
Yeah.
And in her case, I think it was, you know, back to what Lauren was saying, you know, her host family, you know, they're humans. Jordan's human. They're also the adults. She left here when she was 15. She turned 16 pretty quick after she got there. You know, she didn't help herself at times, but again, she's a 16-year-old kid. So, but she would say, and she did say eventually, that her exchange really, I mean, it helped really kind of shape who she was. So
even though it might not have been super smooth,
yeah,
it ended up being a blessing to her.
learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of took it by the horns and said, here's how we're going to make this better for the next set of kids.
I can at least make the kids that are coming to me, because I'm the inbound coordinator for the district. So I want to make sure that they are safe and comfortable. And I'm not saying there's not hiccups, there always are.
And Rotary kind of moves, and they'll have at least three
We strive for 3.
host families while they're here in the U.S.
Correct. And it's hard, you know, since COVID, it's been hard to, I don't like the term recruit, but it's hard to find families that are willing to host. But, you know, Lauren and I hosted when Jordan was gone, and something that gets lost in all of us too, at the time of Jordan's death, we actually were hosting a student. He was from Bosnia, and a wonderful kid. And I feel bad because Nicola kind of got lost in that whole mess, but he was fine. He was with a great family. He was already staying with that family because we were gone. And yeah, it really kind of makes me sad because we weren't able to finish out our experiences with him. We just weren't in a good mindset to do that. So.
Sure. Yeah.
But anyway, back to the foundation. We call it Larson INKorporated, and we spell that incorporated like ink. Jordan was a huge fan of tattoos.
Okay.
She had, how many?
12.
I think she had 12 tattoos at the time of her death.
Okay.
So, and again, she had just turned 21, guys. So she wasn't, you know, she liked ink. So we have this foundation set up with Green Giving. And what the purpose of it is to help long-term outbound exchange students from our district, Southwest Ohio.
Okay.
It helps defray costs for them to go on exchange.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so you guys do different fundraising events to Raise money?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
So we just had our first annual, of course, when we got it set up, I can't say enough. I know we sound corny or whatever. I am so thankful for our friend network, our Rotary network, and our family network. People have been so generous, not just monetarily, but just with so many other things.
Yeah.
So, of course, when we set it up, the influx of donations were fast and furious, and we do a few things outside of the official fundraiser that we had this past January, but things like football squares, and what else have we done?
What's a football square?
Like Super Bowl squares. So
Okay.
you pay $10 for a square, and so each grid will have $1,000 into it.
Okay.
We'll pay out half to winners and half to the foundation.
And how do people find out about that?
Facebook, word of mouth.
Okay.
Also, in January 23rd of this year, we held a music bingo fundraiser
That sounds fun.
at TJ Chumps here in Fairborn. And Chumps also has been amazing. Again, back to small town.
Yeah.
Right when Jordan passed, our neighbor Matt was there, and Josh, the manager of Chumps, he's like, what do they need? He's like, I'll feed them for forever, So
Wow.
comes home, Matt just like throws food on our porch, not throws, but sets
Yes,
food on
yeah.
our porch. But anyway, music bingo. So we had a fundraiser. That was kind of the core of the fundraiser. We had many donated baskets. A very good friend, Paulette Hensley, did a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
That was
Oh, she's so
Jordan-centric. So we
special.
silent auctioned that.
Yeah.
But what was fun about the bingo, when Jordan passed, there was kind of a huge hiccup with her phone. She was the only Apple user in our family. And the only way we can really get it unlocked is to get a court order to unlock it.
Holy moly.
Wow.
Which we haven't done. Lauren can speak more to this, but we can kind of see what's on there, but it's through a program that the police were kind enough to give to us. So we can kind of, I haven't looked at the stuff, Lauren has. It's downloadable. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so they're not able to uncrack the encryption on the Apple product, but they're able to take images of what's in there.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And this program allows you, so it's basically like a spreadsheet where you can sort the data to text messages and photos and
But not as easy as just going in there and looking at it.
Because none of us knew her passcode. So
But I just wanted to back up real quick. But in terms of Larson Inc. and the foundation, it's administered by Green Giving, and so there's bylaws and there's a framework, and so our original donations were just that. So people can go to there's a QR code, and they can scan the QR code, and there's drop downs, from $5 to $50, and or you can make any other miscellaneous donation, and then and then they provide us with a spreadsheet monthly, and then there's a small administrative fee. And again, the theme of the day, we can't say enough for their help and their kindness in administering the foundation.
there's actually no admin fee. Green Giving, their fees, I think, are, they take care of that through donations. I
Really?
believe.
And I got to tell you, that legitimizes it so well.
Yeah.
They do such a great job.
Yeah.
But it also lets everybody know that this is not, we're just not going to send money and hope you guys do what you just said. This is the real deal.
Well, is
as far
it a
as-
5013C?
C3,
So
yeah.
any
Yep.
donations are tax deductible for
And we
We'll
do.
make sure there's a link
Yep.
with your.
And we have a board of 5. So our good friend Kelly Stock is our chairperson. And then we have a treasurer, secretary, and 2 kind of at-large members. Lauren and I are advisory only because we feel,
Some separation.
yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I think it's good to not have our hand on top of it like that.
yeah.
But the music bingo, you guys. So back to the phone, and the reason I was going there. So her Spotify, and I don't know how much I can say here, but Jordan had a really eclectic taste in music, anywhere from Old Crow Medicine Show to some rap that I'd never heard of. She was just all over. But some of her playlist titles on Spotify, which ones do we want to talk about? I don't know if Graham can edit these out if it's not okay, but it's so songs. One title: "Songs to Be Murdered By."
Oh my goodness.
I think my personal favorite is "How to."
Why?
Jordan had an edge to her. If you ever met the girl, she definitely.
Well,
Lauren
if
is
she's
right.
naming playlists that like that,
Exactly,
you can
yeah.
tell
So
there's
this
some
was
edge.
part of music trivia night.
Yeah, so we were able to incorporate some of
Oh,
the
I
songs
see.
into the
Got
music
it.
trivia. So it was fun.
So my favorite playlist is songs if I was drafted, and for some reason it's mostly country music. Back to the music bingo, and it's like, all right, can you go ahead and provide a short list of the songs? And I'm like, man, unless you're under the age of 25, you're probably not going to recognize the
Yeah.
majority of these. But before I lost the thought, I just wanted to go back to Austria real quick.
Yes.
And so one of Jordan's closest friends, and we still stay in contact with her. Her name's Katrina. I call her Kathy. And so earlier this week, I was having a rough day. And it's funny, how many times I've thought of this, I don't know. But I want to say the final text message that Jordan sent to Nicole was, it's like, when are you coming home?
Yeah.
And it was garbled, and
I did not get that until Friday morning.
Yeah.
So
because the phones are locked up on the boat in the safe, and they're off, and I thought of that, and it just it just sent me on a dark spiral, and so I'm just laying upstairs on the couch and thinking, it's like, man, it'd be nice, Jordan, just to have some good news today, just to have some sign that things are okay. And then I hear Nicole downstairs at the door talking to the mailman, and here comes this package from Austria, sent by Jordan's friend and our friend Kathy, and a struggling college student, but I mean, just to mail something from overseas, it costs a pretty penny, and
Because she was thinking of you.
yeah, and she had all these different types of sweets and snacks and tea and honey and a candle but she took the time to make this scrapbook that had photos in there, and then she later, and her handwriting was so precise and perfect, and took time to write such a nice little note and a card, and then when I text her back to say thank you, she's like, kind of like a lot of my friends from overseas, they're it's like, oh, my English isn't so good. And I'm like, I think your English is better than mine.
better than my German.
And penmanship, definitely, right?
Yeah, but such perfect timing.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Yeah,
and it
perfect.
arrived on that day that you
Yeah.
were feeling so dark.
Yeah, we got to see pictures we had never seen before, so that was kind of cool. And that's one of the things when I was putting together her picture slideshow for the fundraiser in January. It's bittersweet, right? Because you're like, I already had a lot of photos uploaded. I had done some collages of the kids when they were little, but there's still a lot more I can upload to put on there. But I'm like, there'll never be any new ones. But she got to do a lot in her barely
Short
21
gap.
years. Yeah, for sure. So she got to learn how to ski in the Alps, and she got to see a lot of things, and I'm thankful for that. So
And
yeah.
and I'll just and I know we're getting a little bit away from the foundation, but I'll use the term synchronicity. So we talked about Spotify, and so I don't know how I started listening to this podcast on Spotify. It's called Grief to Growth.
Got it.
And started listening to the gentleman. His name's Brian Smith, and such a great help to me. Brian lost his daughter Shayna, and so and he would, similar to you all, he'd bring on different guests and share their experiences. And I learned that grief and trauma can take on many different shapes. And fast forward, one of our best friends, one of Nicole's coworkers, Dwight, were at his house, and I mentioned Grief to Growth. And he's like, yeah, I know this guy in Westchester, and his name's, is it Brian Smith? Yeah.
So it's the same person?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And,
Wow.
dumb luck, fate, blessing, synchronicity, a lot of ways to describe that. And so I'll just throw that out there as a resource. There's a website on all the different podcast sites, whether Spotify or Apple. There's great content, great loving, helping content there for people who may be struggling with grief or trauma.
Right. Yeah. So there are resources available.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe we can include some of the ones
I was
besides
going to say, we'll
growth.
put some links in
Yeah.
based on what
Okay.
you described.
Yeah.
But we want to focus on awareness. We want to focus
Yep.
on measuring stuff along the way. We want to focus on the fact that I love the fact that you did not put that as a collegiate scholarship.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're letting people go around the world at a,
Yeah.
a cheaper
She would've loved
experience.
that.
100%.
She,
Yeah.
you know, she'd like to travel. You know, that the average cost on a Rotary Youth Exchange for long term, it's anywhere between $6,000 and $8,000. So in the big scheme of things, it's not a ton of money. But if the foundation can give, you know, we'll just say $2,000. We've given out one scholarship. We did it pretty quick. Again, we're learning as we go. But the first recipient, Dominic, he is sponsored by the Batavia Rotary Club down outside of Cincy. He's currently in South Korea having the time of his life. So we were able to distribute, we gave him $1,200 to
Nice.
help put towards his exchange.
That's amazing.
We're going to be able this year, you know, I don't know where the board's going, but there's a good chance we give out more than one this year because our fundraiser in January it went well. And
Good.
for that, I'm really thankful because the more we can, you know, $2,000 for something that costs $6,000 is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just awareness
Yeah.
of the fact that that's available, of the fact that you're trying to short circuit other people's misery.
But how do people find out that you guys are doing the foundation and that you have these scholarships available?
So with my work with Rotary Youth Exchange with the district,
Okay.
I basically shove it down their throats. So,
She's not shy.
Yeah.
for lack of better terms.
Okay, but just so that they know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's there and you want to make it
Yes.
something that is helping other people.
Yeah, you know, and again, we're fluid with it. And I've told them, I'm like, you know, we have only 4 going outbound long term this year for 25, 26. And I'm like, guys, if you don't want to utilize this money, and it's cool if you don't, then tell me, because then I'm going to open it up to, you know, our district belongs to a multi-district.
Okay.
Because there's money there to help, and I want it to help people.
Right.
Jordan would want to help. So
Yeah.
And you may have mentioned this, but that it is the Rotary Youth Exchange program is a nonprofit because there's a lot of programs out there, and they're not nonprofit, and that significantly raises the cost for these young men and young women to travel and live overseas. But back to the fundraiser, and I may not have done a very good job in saying this when I was at the fundraiser, but you know, as much as we wanted to raise funds and support these young men and women traveling overseas, just having that we had over 100 people show up.
Wow.
and just so we could share Jordan and you know, and I've learned that you know, as we're grieving, we go through, oh my God, we lost our daughter, and then it becomes then you kind of get stuck in this phase of, you know, of what happened, and then it kind of morphs into she's gone, and then, you know, and it goes back and forth a little bit, and then you may get into the phase of that, hey, she lived, and so when we look at her photos, instead of becoming this melancholy crying moment, it's like, oh, look at her, she's smiling and she's having a good time. But then I'm finding that you know, with these type of events, not only do you recognize that that she lived, but that she still lives.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you guys. That's very powerful.
I know, I think we're close. Just real
It's
quick.
okay. You guys keep on going.
Yeah,
we don't have to stop it at an hour.
I just want to make sure that Xavier, her brother, doesn't get lost in this either.
Yeah.
So it's, how do I want to word this? Again, he's doing great. Weirdly, you know, we talked about earlier our life path. We were stationed at Offutt. Actually, that's where Jordan was born. Jordan was born in Bellevue, Nebraska, at the Offutt Air Force Base Hospital. And Xavier right now is stationed there. He is living in the same apartment complex where Jordan spent the first 10 months of her life.
Oh my gosh. That's
So I
wild.
find a really kind of
Yeah.
full circle moment there.
Teeny
but
tiny little world, isn't it?
it is, right? But Xavier, he's doing great. And he doesn't love to talk about his sister, and that's cool. We totally get it.
Sure.
But, you know, he's doing amazing. And I just want to make sure that that's made clear.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and we've learned that we all process and deal and handle with grief and trauma differently, and and we could go on just between Nicole and myself, and how we process, and Xavier is his own man and on his own path.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people that all the time about, it's one thing to have the commonality of losing somebody that you made together, but how we grieve her is very different. And that's a whole nother, we probably need 4 more hours to talk about that. So, but you just have to be patient and just kind of know that how I want to deal with it is not how Lauren wants to deal with it, or Xavier for that matter, or anyone, like her friends who are traumatized by this as well. And so, yep, it's a path.
So Xavier, if you listen to this, we love you.
Hi,
and
Xavier.
and we're proud of you. And I'm looking forward to getting out there for your birthday in July.
Yeah, perfect.
When he
Now,
turns.
how do you say that in Russian? Because he is fluent, right?
Yeah.
He is, so he came home. I forget if it was over the holidays, and I'm like, so Xavier, say something to me in Russian, and then it was like 15 minutes later he finishes, and I think I picked up one. It was like Toyota.
Yeah, I was going to say, please pass the gravy.
And I'm like, what did you? What was that? He's like, oh, that was my one of my final presentations I had to make. It was about something like having a car dealership in Columbus. And
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
yeah, and one would think, I was like, what does that have to do with the military? But in this course at Defense Language Institute, it's an immersive course where he would read Harry Potter in Russian.
Oh my
His
gosh.
GPS instructions were in Russian. His text messages were in Russian. And
Wow.
and and so this presentation had nothing to do with military stuff. It dealt with a car dealership.
And that's real life.
People pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere you go. We might say things differently, or it might sound different, but people are people everywhere you go.
I don't know if this will be too difficult for you guys, but do you want to each share one of your favorite moments with Jordan?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
I'll go unless you want to go first.
There you go. I think I know. Yeah, go for it.
So after I retired out of the military, I did what I call my mercenary years as a contractor. Basically, do the same thing, but got paid a lot better. And I'll just say, I was having a bad day, something about work, and then Jordan, came home, and I was venting. I was going to use some other colorful language about blanking and complaining.
Yep.
And then I'm like, Jordan, I'm so sorry. I'm just like dumping on you. And, and so here, probably in our early high school years, and just so matter of fact, it was like, Dad, it's okay. You're entitled to have a bad day, and anytime you want to talk about it, you can. And that may seem like a simple thing, but it's just so in tune and intuitive and
Empathetic.
and empathetic and heartfelt.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, she didn't take it personally. She wanted you to be okay.
Yeah.
And if that meant talking about it to her, she's cool with it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She was empathetic is a perfect word, Terry. She was a really good gift giver because she would just listen, and I really like that. I love that about her. No offense, Abe, unlike her brother. But so I was going to give another kind of moment like that. I had to deal with delivering, with Fairborn Rotary, we do a project where we do Christmas gifts for families that need help. I'm not going to talk about that one though, because I was crying because I had to deliver. Okay, I'll talk about it real quick. I had to deliver these gifts to a situation that just kind of broke my heart, and I'm just a mess. And she and I are on a walk, and she's like, Mom, she's like, I know it sucks, but she's like, look at it this way. It's probably, if not the best day they've had ever, it's going to be the best day they've had in a really long time. Yeah. So just try to keep that in the back of your mind. But I feel like yeah, exactly. And I think one of my favorites, and this is, I'm throwing her under the bus, but she's not here to tell me not to. So you know where I'm going with this.
I think so.
So we took the kids to New York City after Christmas in 2019, and she is freshly back from her exchange.
Yes.
And I can guarantee before she left for Austria, she had never touched alcohol. And as much as we say alcohol's a no-no, on exchange, it happens. So just throw that out there. And she's in Europe, which is a little bit different than the kids coming here.
Yeah.
Different cultural.
And I know a lot of people listening don't know me, but I know Terry does and Lauren does. But she's like, we're sitting at the Hard Rock Cafe, and this was after a really weird exchange with a girl at the bar trying to give our 16-year-old son a shot, like a green tea shot, because he walks in and she's like, oh, he's cute. Do you want a shot? I'm like, he's 16, so no. But we're sitting at the table, and I don't even know how it started, but Jordan's like, Mom, I can drink you under the table.
Oh,
I'm
boy.
like, oh boy.
Here we go.
Like
Saddle
it
up.
was a competition. It was about to be a
It was
competition.
hilarious, but it didn't. I mean, she ordered a drink and took like 2 sips, and she's like, yeah, I can't do this.
Yeah, you win.
It was just so funny because I'm like, oh, honey, you have no idea who you're dealing with. So, yeah. Anyway, is that how you recall it?
There's a lot of things I recall about that story.
Do you have gaps to fill in?
Oh, I do.
Go for it. It's okay. I won't take offense, probably.
Some things are just better left unsaid.
There we
Okay.
go. We
That
trust
I
your judgment,
Yes.
Lorne.
Prudence.
Oh, but yeah.
Anything else that you guys can think of that you'd like to add about the foundation?
No, you know what? We're we'll forever work on it, and the
Yeah.
more we can help these kids go, especially now, again, the world's, we say in youth exchange, a peace ambassador, one student at a time.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it.
love that.
It's a cultural exchange where they have to go to school. I mean, that's one thing the Department of State makes clear. But, we could use just a little goodness, right? And if a kid can go over there and say, hey, not all Americans are insane, that's great. So
And vice versa. They get
Yeah.
to come here too.
Yeah.
for sure, and see that we're,
Not all insane.
not all insane.
It's not
Yeah.
that big a globe when you start taking it down a person at a time.
Yeah,
I am
true story.
curious about the moth. How did you guys decide on the moth?
Again, this was one of her tattoos.
Gotcha.
You can see this actually was one of the tattoos that she had. Hers had a knife going through, like a dagger. I didn't like the dagger, so I took the dagger out and just put the J's there. But
Got it.
yep, she was big into moths and butterflies, and a few of her tattoos kind of reflected that. So
Okay,
yep,
gotcha.
yep,
Got it.
Make
I
sure the
figured.
QR code's on there and other ways to contact.
Yeah.
We'll get some photos and make sure it looks just like you like.
Oh, I love it.
And again, I'm sorry, I just wanted to express my gratitude again for giving us this opportunity to come on and, and share a little bit about Jordan and a little bit of, about moving the Fairborn and our story and, and witness a little bit of our pain and grief. And at the same time, I hope that, for the audience out there that they've learned a little bit more about diabetes and so much more than what I just shared. There's a plethora of information out there. And if they ever see any of these symptoms, that they may have a little bit better insight into some steps that they may need to take. So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, we're thankful
It
for
is
you
our
sharing that
pleasure.
because it's obviously something that needs to be talked about more.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
So that there's just that awareness. And so good for you guys for educating. Yeah. Using something so painful to make a difference.
Have to use it for good, right?
Here's what I love about this. I know your friend group is going to like and share the heck out of this.
True story.
Your friend group is amazing.
they are
and there will
amazing.
be, this will be by far probably our best viewed episode ever. But that's the name of this game, is to get awareness out there and to make sure that circles overlap.
Yeah.
And we've all got way more in common than we probably think.
Yep.
Yeah, that is for
And
sure.
that's what's beautiful, right? And back to the whole, tying youth exchange back into it. We are more similar. I think we're a lot more similar. Jordan kind of learned that too, and we're more similar sometimes in not great ways. And it's really important for young people, especially, to get out in the world and realize that, people in Austria, people in South Korea, like they have a lot of similar problems and feelings, and they're just people trying to live their lives just like we are. And
Just humans.
the best way to learn that is to be in it. And so the more we can see outside of our own little great small town, the better. So
I love
Good
that.
things.
yeah,
That's a
yep.
And how do we wrap this up?
Cheers.
No. What do you always say? Prost.
Oh, salute. I'm like, can't say what I usually say. I'm being recorded.
Thanks again for coming.
Yeah,
and
thanks for having
again,
us.
like and share.
Like, subscribe, and share. Yes, pass this along. Here
I
you go,
choke on my
babe.
coffee. And it is just coffee. For now.
Darn it.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Next
you guys.
time.
All right, see you later. Bye. Lauren, you mentioned something about your writing. I know we're not official. We're still recording, but we're not official. But you said something about writing, and I didn't know if you were maybe working on a book.
I am. So, so last year I started journaling, and So I don't. So there was actually a journal that was given to Jordan, I think, for her exchange, and it was never used. And it was written. I can't remember the author's name, but retired admiral. And his book is called Make Your Bed. And so in this journal, about half a page for every day, and at the bottom of it was like a good thing that I did today. And so I started on 1 January, and I made it all the way through to Christmas Eve, then overcome by the holidays, and then so here I am. It's like I should, actually, I'm going back through it, highlighting things to include, and I'll call it a book, but I don't know if anyone will ever read it. But this experience since Jordan passed on, and so I'm working. I have like 3 prologues in it already, and then the first chapter is going to be just describing her, and then there'll be some other experiences and lessons learned, and then I'll have an appendix of of what I journaled, and and if someone was to read it, first and foremost, they have a much better understanding and sight picture of Jordan and who she is, and and throughout the book, I made a point of saying, you'll see, sometimes was and sometimes is, going back to that she lived and she still lives, but it's very therapeutic for me, and it's a work in progress. Who knows? It might be a living, breathing document.
Sure.
But
sometimes the books we write are for ourselves, not for other people.
Yeah.
So it's good to write it down.
Yeah.